So, although this season hasn't been the best for Man City so far, it's quite clear that some of their players are improving at an accelerated rate, playing more and more because of injuries. One of them is definitely Kusenov, who's been fantastic recently and is deserving his starts in the team. And in this video, we're going to talk about exactly why he is just so good. So, overall, let's get into it. Now, if you don't know me, you don't know my content, I have made 2 videos on my other channel back in the day about Kusenov when he signed for Man City and a couple of months into his career, and I genuinely have always had a lot of admiration for this guy. I think he is a genuinely good player that we will see more, always hoping that he can play more. Now, his time at Man City has definitely been on and off, basically the same with any defender though within the club. They play a good amount of games and in quite a long period, and then they don't get seen for about 4 months. We see this all the time. We understand that Diaz and Vardy out are the 2 main centre-backs, but obviously both of them have pulled up injured in January, so it's gave Kusenov more of a time to play, which I think has been great and overall not been a detriment at all. Now, the thing is to say with this guy that you can see that how good of an athlete he really is on the football pitch. He's always been one of the quickest defenders around. I remember watching him at Lyon and just thinking this guy's absolutely rapid. I like that in certain aggressive notions where he can come out with a defensive line and kind of go up to a striker, which I think he does sometimes. But I think that actually is a bigger idea for later on in Man City games and him recovering a lot more. Now, I don't think it's been a secret this season that Man City's athleticism and just general team has been very lackluster beyond the 60th minutes in games to kind of catch up to people, be able to keep in games. They just look absolutely tired out there, and the minutes played by a lot of their main players, especially in the forward areas, would be a big reason for that. However, he just seems like sometimes the only person on the pitch that can keep up with these teams that are running at them late on. I've seen numerous games now, Galatasaray, Newcastle, where he has come up and he has been so good athletically at running in behind and stopping these runs every single time, and the sheer amount of pace he has is incredible, which I think is a big point. It's not only that, we always talk about in football, and when you analyse football, about not just sheer pace, but it's keeping that same aggressive pace and the sort of aggressive nature in a tackle. It's very much easy for someone to run up to some guy and then be soft in a tackle, but being hard in that situation to win the ball back is what you need to have, and he's got that aggressive nature completely. He is an absolute fighter. He will beef people on the pitch, he will compete in duels a lot, and his duel percentage wins are incredible, and especially I think on the ground, he is becoming elite. He just has this really good way of knowing when to go really hard onto people or calming it down a little bit, even though I would say he's more in the tendency of a bit of aggressive defender. I wouldn't say he calms it down too much, but that's fine with the player that he is. And I do love the fact that he just throws himself at everything. You can really tell that this guy just really cares about playing and wants to win for the club more than a lot of other players that maybe you can't tell with their physical attributes on the pitch. He just kind of just runs at people sometimes, and I think that's a really important part of how Man City play right now when they are playing these more transitional based end-to-end games, which we are starting to see consistently happen later on in games against them. If anyone watched that Newcastle second half, it was just end-to-end, both teams having one-on-ones over and over again, and he is the best person for that. I also want to mention that we didn't really speak about it earlier, but in the air, this guy has improved so much from his time at Lyon, it is crazy. Now, he's always been a good guy that can judge balls over the top very well. We said about that pace, we said about letting the ball bounce, and he can kind of hold players off with his strength and kind of keep the ball and recycle it and get the attacker away from it. But now he is competing physically in the air. Obviously, a lot of people have spoken about how he was able to deal with Woklz in the air, which is incredible. Woklz is like 6'7", a big, tall guy. And a lot of that does come down to the physicality. Kusenov does have way more strength and way more just due diligence in his physicality than someone like Woklz. But I do think he still had to do a great job to get up there and head the ball away. I just felt like he was physically battling all the time. And this has happened consistently over the last 8 games in which he has started, which he deserves a lot of credit for. Now, I also want to mention that's obviously some of the defensive work, which we knew he had, but there's always them question marks of how is he going to do on the ball because he is playing for such a team that has the ball a lot. Now, City have had the ball a lot in this season, even though watching them, it doesn't feel like it sometimes. And I'd say there's definitely moments in games where they just don't have it at all, but they still do want to attack and control possession throughout most of the game. Now, a lot of the time, I really like his passes out wide. I think his switching ability is still really good. Something I mentioned when he was at Lyon. I love that still. I think that's a great level. And I do like his little passes inside. I really think with a player like Rodri, he works really well because Rodri just likes players around him trying things because Rodri's always going to be there to sweep up if you make a mistake. This pass to Neville has improved heavily though, and that also I think breeds confidence into Kusenov, who is a confidence player. When he first joined, you can tell he was a little bit nervous in that game, and that's probably why he made the mistakes in the first place, but I don't think that's been a given. I think the more he's played, the more confidence he's got and the better he's got within the squad. You've seen his carrying improve. His carrying's improved a lot, just running up the pitch into that space when it's available. He also is a brilliant passer between the lines. Some of the risks he takes in terms of when the team is in a settled block and he plays it over the top of them, I love. I always knew he had a great ability to switch, like we mentioned, but I didn't know about that ability over the top as much, but I think that has developed so much more at Man City. And obviously his passing just generally is quite good. I think he's a really good player at doing the simple pass, but doing a couple of risky passes a game. Not someone that you probably want in certain game states because he isn't going to do them enough and be as confident. That's definitely something you can still develop. Incredibly young player, incredibly good base to do this passing, and I've seen enough of it already where I know that this guy can do it to help the team get up the pitch, and that's something that Man City need. And this is the thing, he's got clearly physical attributes that are really beneficial. He's now doing the technical attributes as well, and he's clearly just an athlete on the pitch. I think he's one of the best athletes Man City have just genuinely on the entire team sheet, and considering Man City are in this situation right now where they've got their two main centre-backs injured and are out, they've just brought Allende back from Watford on loan, Mark Gay's come in for a transfer, and obviously Nathan Ake is still there. He still has players around him that he has to beat to get into that team. Now at the moment for me, I think Gay's the starting left centre-back, and it's quite clear that Kusenov is the starting right centre-back. I do think that's a really good level. And I've spoken about Gay a little bit in other videos, and we did a Man City video if you want to watch that. He's a little bit aggressive as well, but probably not as aggressive as Kusenov, and is a little bit more of that technical, calmer, sound player. So I actually really like that mix between the two players as well. You're more physical player in Kusenov, who's absolutely rapid, covers all the ground, just eats people up. And then you've got Gay, who can do a little bit of that, but it likes to be a little bit more tame on the ball and a little bit more tame in general with the game play. And he's probably a little bit better at finding passes between the lines rather than like a carrier or more physical outputter like Kusenov. But I just really think that's a good level. And obviously, I do think a lot of people will sit there and say, well, the money spent on a lot of players that haven't necessarily worked out, not just for City, but for other teams. Everyone always wants to talk about the players that haven't worked out, but I don't really like doing that. I want to talk about the players that have improved, have got better, and deserve praise. And also, this has obviously been prompted quite a lot because the commentators just kept bringing up that mistake he made, and anyone watched that game, you just felt bad for him. And ever since then, he's been really good. It's not just now, even 3 games after he made that mistake, he became a good player. And I was completely befounded by the fact that he wasn't played enough last season and at the start of this year because of Pep. And I do think obviously there's a potential he can play right back with that pace he's got. Maybe not like an overlapping player right now. Maybe he could play on the inside a little bit, which might contradict a little bit with what Man City are trying to do with their attacking fullbacks. But I still think in terms of defensive lockdown right back, he can do that. And he's super young. He can clearly develop into an attacking player as well. He's got the attributes there, and he's clearly a real star that Man City have. So I cannot really argue with him at the moment. I think he's really, really good. And I think if you're a fan of this guy, you will be proud of what he's doing overall. Now let me know in the comments what you guys think about this video, and let me know what you think about the player overall. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next one.